Let's talk a little bit about how to implement some of the basic elements into a standard Aavelin page. Let's start by actually creating a new Aavelin page. We'll click on the Append Page button, select Aavelin Page as our type, and leave the description field blank. It's optional, and click on OK. The new page is created. We're taken into the page editor, and along the left-hand side of the page editor window, we have buttons that show the various elements that we can add to this page. The ones we're going to talk about here are background, text, picture, rectangle, and ellipse. The others that you see here are a little more involved and will merit their own discussion in their own videos, so we'll talk about those later. Let's start with the background. It's the one item that doesn't have its own dedicated button in this list here on the left. A background can be a solid color, a pattern, a ramp from one color to another, or an image that's automatically stretched to take up the entire page. Unlike other page elements, a background, if you have an image background, it can't be selected, it can't be moved around the page and resized. So to access the background selection panel, you can either click on the Page Properties button and select the Background tab, or you can simply double-click anywhere in the page editor where we don't have another object, and it takes you right there. In the Background Type field, if you select solid or any of the numerous ramp options that are in here, the appropriate number of color swatches down below are going to become active. So for ramp top to bottom, we just have 2 colors that are available. And if I select 2, you can see in the preview what that looks like. If I change that to another option, another direction, it demonstrates again in the preview. Some of the options down below actually make use of all 4 of the color options down here, so I can select different ones for 3 and 4, and you can see what it does for that in the preview. To use a picture for the background image, you just scroll up here and select Image File, and then click on either of the Browse buttons. Stock Images is going to take you to the folder where the stock backgrounds are kept. You can define that path under Setup. And the Browse My Images button is going to open the folder that any item was most recently selected from. So we're going to go to that folder. We're going to go to where I've got some images stored here. We'll select one for our background. This is a very high-res image. The software automatically scales it down so that it takes up just the page area. Also note that when we're browsing here, the list of available image formats that are in here is fairly extensive. Pretty much any image format that you can commonly find on a PC is going to be accessible to you within Aavelin Composer. We'll click on OK, and we can see that that background is now rendered for the entire page. Text, pictures, rectangles, and ellipses, the remaining 4 items that we're going to discuss here, all behave in a fundamentally similar fashion. If you click on the button to insert the object, you can move it and position it on screen and adjust the properties. You move it by grabbing the white border around the object. You can resize it with any of the black handles along the border. More unique features for each object type. Let's discuss those right now. When you're inserting text, you can click inside the object to place the text cursor, erase the word text, and simply type directly into the object. The font size as you type and resize the box is not going to adjust to fit necessarily. This is done intentionally so that we always know exactly what the font size is. Instead, what we can do is double-click inside the object and access its property sheet. From here we can change the font that's used, colors, shadows and outlines, background properties for the object, and there's also a spell check tab here as well. When inserting a picture, the first thing that you have to do is actually select an image file before it lets you adjust any of the other properties for this particular object. So we also provide controls for gamma and brightness and contrast correction for RGB. So I'll click on OK, and then this can be positioned in size just as the text object was as well. Similar conventions for everything. Now, rectangles and ellipses have identical behavior. The only difference is the shape. They're typically used as accents around or behind other objects. You can place them behind text or graphics to help them sit off the background. For example, this image object doesn't necessarily separate itself from the background in all places. It doesn't really have a very coherent look to it. So let's go ahead and bring in a rectangle here. Let's position it where we want it, and as we do that, we notice that it's actually in front of this particular image. So we can utilize the buttons up at the top that say Send Back or Bring Forward to make some layering adjustments. So we're going to send this back, and then we can see it's now behind that image, and I can place this so that it's more centered and it acts as kind of a nice little border that helps make that picture stand off of the background. Lastly, with rectangles or ellipses, if you double click on them, it brings up the Object Properties button to the Graphics tab, and here we can change the colors that are used for the rectangle, get rid of the outline, add a shadow to it, etc.